The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like bundling your cardboard separately. These bundles can act as a lid for your blue box or placing heavier items such as magazines on top of papers with no material above the rim.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk Politics. I'm Deborah Hutchison. It is April 7th, 2020. We are now about, four full weeks into the pandemic and the point where we were all asked to social distance, physical distance. We here at Rogers TV are doing our part. Joining me today via video, Clarington Mayor Adrian Foster. Mayor Foster, how are you doing?
I am doing well, and it's amazing how that phrase has such a different meaning today than it did a month ago.
A lot more meaning to it.
It does, and who would have guessed?
My first question: you recently issued a state of emergency, as many other municipalities have. What does that mean for residents?
So typically municipalities will declare a state of emergency when they need resources from higher levels of government. There can be financial resources if you need help in one way or the other. That isn't the case today, currently at the moment. We issued the state of emergency, declared that as an act of solidarity with the province, and it was to try to get the message across to people that they absolutely, if they should be self-isolate. If they aren't practicing safe physical distancing, they absolutely have to practice safe physical distancing. So it really was getting on the same page with the province.
Your main message, you have reached out to your residents many times electronically via video. Posting your messages online. Today, what is your main message to the residents of Clarington?
So that continues to be the main message, and it's wonderful. So on a regular basis, I'm getting Facebook messages, I'm getting emails where people are very concerned with what they are seeing. So that concern and people taking the time to express it. But we're looking at the stats, and they would suggest that 8 to 10% of the population just don't get it or don't want to get it. And everyone, if you think you're invincible, you're not. And even if you are, your family, your friends, your neighbors aren't necessarily going to be invincible, and this thing kills. So practice safe distancing. Pay attention to the rules. We're very concerned with fishing. That fishing season will open up, and I know it's a passion for a lot of people, but if you're doing that, make sure you're 6 feet away from people.
Yeah, you just don't drive down to the lake and hop in a boat to go fishing with your buddy anymore.
Right, and for us, there's a limited amount of space on the creek and riverbeds. People are typically tightly packed. I'm already hearing MPP Pacini and MPP Park had a teleconference with myself and a variety of mayors. Good on them for putting that together. And already we're hearing the frustration of van loads of people showing up to go fishing. And it's, I get that you enjoy fishing, but it is just not worth dying for or killing for.
Why do you think people are not getting the message? Because it is, and that's what we're hearing from many people, how frustrating it is when the majority are trying to do their best to, let's face it, save lives in the end. And there are others that just don't get it, or I'll say it, they just don't care. And it's nobody's going to tell me what I can and I can't do kind of mentality, which is out there.
Yeah, so I think you're right that there are a limited number of people who don't care. I think there are probably more people because this isn't visible. You can't hear it, you can't see it, you can't taste it. you maybe have a sense of invincibility, if that's a word, that you shouldn't have. And quite frankly, there was not so much in Canada, in Ontario, I think in Durham, you saw the leadership that you needed to see, but there were some pretty high profile individuals internationally who, frankly, until the last couple of weeks, blew this off. And that is not helpful.
So let's talk about what has been closed, and you have extended closures, as many other municipalities have. Your parks, the playgrounds. Of course, City Hall is closed. Are you still seeing evidence of people taking their chances and going to these facilities?
So I've been driving around and watching, and I'm happy with what I'm seeing. I'm not happy with what is being reported back. So I would suggest, generally speaking, that the vast majority of people are in fact practicing appropriate physical distancing. We're hearing a lot about stores where, depending on the store that you're going in, entire families going shopping. Some complaints from people who work in retail, and they are a form of frontline worker at this point in time. You figure anyone that you're exposed to everyone that they've been exposed to. It's that multiple happens pretty quickly. But if you don't need to shop, go out once. Don't take your family with you. Have one individual shopping, not everyone. And we are hearing, again, from the retail side, that people are bored. So one of the ways that you combat your boredom is go shopping. It's just such a very bad plan.
Of course, there have been many layoffs. Our economy has been hit very, very hard by this. What incentives have, or what relief has Clarington put in place to help both residents and businesses?
So municipalities are very limited in terms of what we can do for businesses or for individuals. We have, and this is fairly consistent across across the province. Most municipalities are on side with deferring interest and penalties on taxes for 60 days. And that can be extended as we need to extend it. I know Nancy Taylor at the region, and you recall that Nancy was our treasurer. I sit as chair of finance. We had that discussion yesterday to find out who is looking at what can we put in place to help within the limits of the legislation. So at this point in time, that's what we have done. Durham region as well, with water and sewer, have done the same thing. But people do need to bear in mind that that's simply a deferral. So it'll save you some interest and penalties. But when we come out of the other side of this, those bills are still owing. It's going to be interesting to see how we deal with that. And quite frankly, I don't want to come to downtown Bowmanville or Newcastle and see that a number of businesses didn't make it. It's an interesting tightrope that both the federal government, the province, as well as we are walking on, to not completely kill the economy, but make sure that people are safe.
I want to change gears just for a second. We're rapidly running out of time. While we are all dealing with the COVID-19, it is spring thaw again, and there are concerns about a flooding at Clarington's waterfront. And with the social distancing that we're being asked to maintain, preparing for the possibility and even responding to the possibility of floods, whole new challenge there.
Yeah, I was down a couple of weeks ago before the social distancing was an issue, and we had some of our volunteer firefighters on the sandbagging machine. I don't know how many bags were made that day, but a significant number. And because of the social distancing, now you've got, instead of a machine and people lined up, you've got a funnel, a shovel, and a bag, doing one at a time. So we are preparing for that. making as many bags as we can. It is by no means efficient. It's so much more slow. But frankly, if we need to deploy those, so if floods happen, it's going to be deploying those, trying to recognize physical distancing during an emergency. That is going to be exceptionally problematic. So anything that we can do now today to prepare as much as we can, I think is effort well spent.
And that was a bone of contention at last night's council meeting, April 6th. Of course, the town business must continue. How are you working council meetings now? Is it like a teleconference, a Zoom, a Skype?
So we are, teleconference. It's a Microsoft platform that we're using. I think we're all getting used to multiple platforms depending on who we're talking to. I would suggest at the beginning of the meeting, we had some issues where everyone is discovering the limits to their broadband. But those issues got dealt with. I know staff put a huge amount of time putting that together and trying to make it work. So we've got to give them a big shout out that these meetings are, we show up, but the work that goes on behind the scenes, and you're right, there is regular business. That was a bit of a bone of contention last night at the meeting, but the lake levels are exceptionally high. So we can't focus purely on the pandemic. There's other stuff that needs to be dealt with.
Talk to me about the mood there at the municipality HQ there. You said business is still happening, but most staff working from home?
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. So if you in chambers last night, the councillors came in remotely. We had the clerk and a couple of staff. So 5 of us in an otherwise empty chambers. It was a little bit eerie. Mm-hmm. Not in a million years would I have anticipated being in that position. So as much as the town hall, we are not letting the public in unless they need to be here to pick up a license or do something formal, in which case we're asking people to book and we're screening people. You've got to wash your hands coming in, all of that good sort of stuff. But beyond the rec services, the business of the municipality carries on. So planning is processing the stuff that planning needs to do. Engineering is doing the stuff that engineering. Bylaws, of course, were out there. They're more busy because of enforcing the province's rules at this point around social gathering, and businesses that should or should not be open. So it's, I was going to say business, it's business as unusual, if you will, but a lot of people, in fact, working from home. So I can tell you the office is a very, very quiet spot today. Okay. And yet we've already had a full department heads meeting this morning.
All right, I'm going to stop you there. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Clarington Mayor Adrian Foster, stay safe.
And you. So everyone out there, stay safe and stay healthy, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like crushing your cans and bottles down in your container's blue box and your box board down in your papers box. This saves a lot of space and reduces the possibility of material blowing out of your blue box on windy days.
Blood in the urine is the most common symptom of bladder cancer. Don't ignore this warning sign, not even once.
Very good. On this brand new edition of Social Life from Home, we talked to Samantha Edis, who actually shared some tips on working from home.
Plus, find out what your favorite contestants are up to as we recap The Bachelor.
And welcome back to Talk Politics. Our next guest is Whitby Mayor Don Mitchell, who is joining us via video. Welcome to the show, Mayor Mitchell.
Well, thank you very much, Deborah.
Once again, we are practicing our physical distancing and our social distancing here. The town of Whitby has been very aggressive with its message and the urgency to stay home, to maintain that physical distancing, the social distancing. Are people getting the message, or what sort of frustrations have you had?
I think generally people are getting the message. When I go out, and of course everybody should be getting out, getting some fresh air and exercise, ideally in your own neighborhood, while keeping your distance. But certainly the people I'm going past, everyone seems to be respecting those rules. I do get some emails and concerns from residents about, gatherings and people not properly self-distancing. And those should all be directed to the Durham Region Police. They have a COVID-19 input page that's there to gather all complaints and concerns about the enforcement of the provincial measures. So I really encourage people, if they see that kind of behavior, to report it. This is definitely not anything like snitching. This is everybody has to take this seriously, because this is highly contagious, and it only takes a few to cause a lot of problems. So we really need everybody on side, and our bylaw enforcement are working very closely with Durham Regional Police to ensure that people understand the necessity of staying safe. And the best way to do that is to physical distance.
I was going to ask you about the involvement of Whitby's bylaw officers and how they are complementing Durham Regional Police in this. I did hear stories in other municipalities this weekend of bylaw officers showing up in the parks, in the playgrounds, and having to have a good talk with people who were not staying away from those areas.
Yeah, and that's the same in Whitby. And the province has delegated municipalities and our bylaw staff with the authority to enforce these provincial measures. And we're out doing that every day, including weekends. And our people are out there and being very active. They're certainly focusing strongly on education and warnings initially. But the fine is pretty stiff. I believe it's a $750 minimum fine for not complying with a provincial measure relating to COVID-19. So if there's any sense that the non-compliance is persisting, you will see fines laid. But the biggest device, more than fines and enforcement, is just people understanding that this virus is just a very hard thing to nail down. When we originally it came to our consciousness less than a month ago, I remember Dr. Kyle was at Regional Council, and it was described then as something pretty different from the way it's being described now. So we're learning more about it, and it's harder. It's impacting more people than we expected, more ages than we expected. So there's really more questions than we had at that time. So people just have to isolate and physically distance. It's a blunt instrument, we get that, but it's the guaranteed way to stop the transmission, and we need to stop the spread of this virus.
Let's talk about the town actions to support that physical distancing. Of course, town hall is closed. The rec centers are closed, the parks are closed, event cancellations. And have you had to extend closures beyond what you initially had thought?
Yes, we did another extension. I believe we're out at the end of June now. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there is really no end in sight as we speak. So we've done a few things to try and help out. We've provided parking relief in a couple of ways, opened up town parking lots for people. If you end up having more people at home more of the time, you have to manage your cars. We're being somewhat lenient in terms of on-street parking for the same reason. We've increased the garbage bags again because more people are around town, so it's up to 6 you can leave out. And we did defer the property tax payments for 60 days. We were going ahead with that regardless, but we certainly appreciate that the province stepped in and allowed us to not remit to them the education levy on the tax bill. So that certainly helps our cash flow, and we really appreciate that measure.
Talk to me about your concerns regarding our businesses and the downtown and the vibrancy of what Whitby had really built up as a very busy, vibrant downtown.
Yes, well, anybody in the hospitality industry has been hit pretty hard by the inability of people to gather together. We're trying to support through what today we call it Takeout Tuesday, but any day of the week, lots of restaurants are offering takeout. That's a great way to provide some support through this, and I encourage everyone to do that when they can. But it's really tough, and I know of all the concerns among small business owners in particular, the concerns about having to pay rentals when they're closed, like mandatorily closed, is a big challenge. And again, I know the province is working with landlords and working generally, as are we, to try and find some solutions that will let us get through that phase and keep people back in business. So there'll be more steps to come on that for sure, but very stressful time for everyone, regardless of your situation. But for people facing, direct financial stresses or direct, if they're having mental health, wellness challenges, everything is just really accentuated. So there are resources out there, and there are a lot of helps out there. It's a bit overwhelming at times, but please, if you need help getting directed in the right way, please contact us at the town of Whitby, and we'll do our best to help you get things sorted out, because there are a lot of resources.
You also are encouraging people to stay connected through some town community engagement programs. Whitby Well Wishes, Chalk Your Walk. A lot of people have been taking part in that. How does that make you feel when you see their walkways all chalked with well wishes?
I think it's great. It always makes you smile. We saw one just on a walk last week where it was a hopscotch, 162 steps, which
oh my,
is a long way to throw it if you're getting up, above 150. But anyway, it's great and it's cheery. And another thing a lot of people are doing is they're sort of painting rocks and leaving messages. So, and then it's all part of we're all in this together. And we are, and there's a lot of online things. Our library, again, has an incredible amount of resources. Go to that because so much of it is available online to access, so that's a great opportunity. But yes, it's important to stay connected, and it's just very, very, the absence of the physical contact, especially with family members, is not that you're not living with is very unusual and challenging. But our numbers are still, whether it's just because test results are coming in or whatever, we definitely need to do more to flatten this out, to see that we got it a little better under control before we can relax our vigilance in any way.
Have you been to the grocery store lately? Who does the grocery shopping in your family?
So our daughter and son-in-law and grandkids live next door, though we're never with them. We talk to them from a safe distance. But our son-in-law kindly does our shopping for us. So we basically, Liz and I are pretty much home or around home most of the time, except when we're out, we're out for a walk or a bike ride, and that's just generally in our area here. So,
what's he been telling you as far as the mood in the grocery store? Are people maintaining their distance? We've heard lots of stories and frustrations.
So I haven't heard that from Matt, who's my son-in-law, that it's a particular issue in Freshco where he goes, though I certainly have received a number of emails from residents expressing concern about people in grocery stores not respecting that need to distance and to keep the 6 feet apart. Mm-hmm. And those are passed on to our bylaw because again, it's critical that people do that. Another concern, and again, some people have sort of harder issues to cope with, but concern is that people see like whole families out on a shopping edition, mm-hmm. which is if you can manage to just minimize your trips and minimize the number of members who go on the trip, again, it just reduces the spread because this is a very, very contagious virus, and it can flare up quickly.
Okay, we only have about 30 seconds left, but I want to ask you, of course, business continues, not as usual. Council meetings, you're now doing virtually. How's that working out?
It worked out very well. Last night's meeting was well run and worked out well technically, and council members were great. A lot of really positive comments and positive input. The council members are also doing a great job. Our town communications are doing a great job messaging. Please go to our website. It'll direct you into all kinds of good things. But our individual council members are involved in a lot of initiatives, and they're very strong on messaging. So they're all doing playing a real good role in this, I think, in community education and community awareness. So I want to thank all of them.
Okay, and we want to thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to talk to us as well. Our thanks once again to Whitby Mayor Don Mitchell and to Clarington Mayor Adrian Foster for joining us, and thanks to you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
As the first ever winners of the Epic Mac and Cheese competition hosted by Durham College, we're here to show you how to make the award-winning recipe. Today we decided to use ziti noodles, but you can substitute it for any other type of pasta that can hold the sauce. So in order to make the sauce, you're going to need flour, butter, milk, and a little bit of mustard, and of course the most important ingredient, a little bit of Munster cheese.
So first we're going to saute off some onions and garlic. After that we're going to add the margay sausage. At the very end, we're just going to add green onions, roasted red pepper, and mushrooms. What makes it spicy is the cayenne pepper and the red pepper flakes.
And now we mix it all together. And lastly, dish up and enjoy, Durham.